You know the vibes. Welcome back to another episode of the Hoop Genius podcast, brought to you by NBA 2K25 with myself, Mo Mooncey, a 24-year NBA executive, and now just one day away from completing his first full season with the Hoop Genius podcast. How's it feel, Mr. Scott Perry?
Feels awesome, Mo. I had a tremendous workout this morning, man. I feel like I'm 10 years younger after the one I had today. So, man,
Well,
ready and raring to go.
Well,
You
Scott,
know?
I had a tremendous workout this morning. I did a kettlebell circuit, and I feel 10 years older because of the pain in my back. So,
Oh, hey, I worked with a few kettlebells this
yeah,
morning myself. So,
yeah, you're just trying to become a little bit more athletic, a little bit more dynamic. You know how it goes.
yes, exactly.
But before we do want to start, I just want to say how much I and BJ and all the listeners appreciate you. You know, we're coming up to the first full kind of regular season of like a regular scheduled, regular, guest. And I just want to give you your flowers and the insights and the expertise you bring to the show.
Man,
It's an honor to have you part of the family over here.
well, man, I'm so appreciative of it. I had watched you guys before hopping on here with you and really enjoyed what you were doing. So I'm just glad I could get on here and kind of fit in with the family. And I've really enjoyed it, man. And really the content that we cover on a daily basis, man, just really diving in to this league and the game that we love and talking some real basketball, real hoops, real life situations, man. It's been a joy and looking forward to more episodes, my man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, the reason I wanted to mention that is, just before the show started, me and Scott were talking about our award picks for the season, and we were talking about the most improved award. My most improved award is for Scott Perry because Scott, when you first came to the show, you were fantastic, but you were serious GM. Now,
Exactly.
now you know the
Yeah.
vibes.
And I know the I got the message, Mo. You delivered it to me every time I got on. You know the vibes. I said, you know what? I got to loosen up here a little bit with
There
my
we
man
go.
Mo.
There we go.
Exactly.
There we go. But before we get to the awards, last night we saw the Denver Nuggets. They received their jolt.
Mm.
That the owners expected. They picked up a win
Yep. Hmm.
against the Sacramento Kings. They did look
Hmm.
invigorated, although I think they would have been the Kings anyway. But the game that everyone was tuned into, the most expensive ticket in Dallas, I think since their championship run, was Luka Doncic's return in a very emotional return to Dallas. Obviously he was traded. He wasn't very happy about being traded. They played a pre-game montage of his best moments in Dallas, and he was crying. His lip was trembling as he was watching it. He had his face in his hands, crying, emotional. And then he dropped 45 on him. And the best way that I can describe this game, it's like if your wife kicked you out, if your wife left you and said, get out of here, and then someone forced you to watch a highlight reel of the best moments of your marriage, you would feel terrible. But then you pull up with your new girl and you be flexing. And that's exactly what he did. 45-piece chicken dinner.
Did they?
Shout out to Luca, man. Shout out to
But
Luca. What was your thoughts
hey,
watching that?
uh, Mo, only you could give that type of analogy, man, to crystallize what happened last night. But hey, look, a lot of respect to Luka Doncic, man. Watching that last night really was almost a surreal feeling, man. To first of all, class decision by the Mavericks to do what they did to honor him in the way that they did prior to the game. Obviously, I've been a part of those before on various teams I've worked with when you have a player come back and return. But this was unique and special because he was beloved in the community and he was traded not by his own asking. He wanted to retire there as a Dallas Maverick.
And we
And that
don't
fan
see that
base,
much anymore.
and we don't see that much anymore. And that fan base wanted him there the entire time. So to watch him express his emotions openly like that, like you said, he teared up, and then to be able to calm himself down and channel that emotion to the type of performance that he put on yesterday. I mean, that's stuff that movies made of, and he was awesome. I mean, he couldn't miss a shot. It didn't seem like in the first half, and he looked like he was moving up and down the court faster. I mean, everything was clicking and working for him and that Lakers basketball team. So if you are a Lakers fan and a Luka fan, the night couldn't have gone any better. But if you're a Mavericks fan, it probably couldn't have gone any worse for you because not a good performance from the team. The guy that they traded for, Anthony Davis, was silent for the majority of the night, did not have a strong game. So it was a tough night to be working with the Mavericks. But I do know enough about that group there that they're going to put their heads down and they obviously got to take their medicine right now. It's
Kyrie's had the
tough.
ACL. He might not even be back for next season. So you put this
Yes,
team together. And then, I wanted to get your perspective on this because this is something I've never, ever seen before. An opposing team comes into your building and their star player is getting the loudest chants. Like I've seen Steph Curry go on the road and get MVP chants in different buildings and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Oh,
but
yeah.
every single time Luka Doncic got the ball, the arena erupted. There were two things you could hear. Three things you could hear. Either they cheered for Luka, they cheered for their team when they scored, the Dallas Mavericks, or they were chanting Fire Nico. That's the three things I heard. So if you're still a Dallas Mavericks fan, I commend you because, if my team decided to just go and dump their superstars for no apparent reason, I would be pretty mad. But the basketball performance, Luka was 7 of 10 from deep. He had 8 boards as well, 6 assists, and 4 steals. We saw a little message there that maybe he's not as lazy as some people thought. And,
No,
and do you know what I like? Did you see the Gatorade commercial?
I did
So
not.
Gatorade dropped a post on social media. It's just a video of Luka just dribbling the basketball in the gym, but he's got the Gatorade towel around his shoulders. And instead of it saying Gatorade, it actually says traitor on the letters of the thing, which was kind of a really subtle shade they're throwing at the Mavericks organization. And then it said, no love lost, only sweat, meaning that he's been putting in that work. So
Yes.
the Luka Revenge Tour, and I also think the timing of this game might just inspire him even more because we know he shows up in the playoffs. But it was like a home game for him. I'm not surprised he scored 45. He's been in that arena. That's his arena, right? But the timing of that just before the playoffs, man, he might be a whole different animal.
Oh, no question. And consider just the magnitude of the evening. That's what was impressive about it. You're right. We've seen Luka drop 45, 50, 55.
70.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. So we've seen that. But with the efficiency with what he did it, the energy with how he played, I mean, and the precision of his game last night was something to behold. And what I think this is going to do in some regards, I mean, again, it's still, obviously watching last night, the emotions are still pretty raw on both sides. However, last night gives him a little bit of closure because it went so well for him, in my opinion, in Storybook. Now he is formerly a Los Angeles Laker now because his teammates, you could tell, really wanted him to do well. They embraced him. They made sure that they did their part for him to have his shining moment back in his old arena last night. And so now they can go out feeling really good about what they have going into this playoffs. I believe they clinched the 3rd spot last night. So now you're going to be at least hosting the first round series, that you'll be have the home court advantage in that series. And so you heading, I tell you, we talked about this yesterday, Mo. You want to be feeling good heading into the playoffs. And what you witnessed last night and what we've seen from this Lakers team, for the most part, since the trade, is they've been trending upward, playing better basketball, and they're going to give themselves a chance to make a deep run.
And, that 3rd seed is crucial because you might end up facing the Grizzlies, which is the team I think everyone wants to face in that first round. Although the Warriors are just half a game behind, you could end up with the Warriors-Lakers first round, which I know the league would be very happy about in terms of the ratings because that would be a very fun series to watch. But let's talk about these awards now, Scott. I went back through the archives. We're on episode 669. I had to scroll all the way down through the archive to find our award predictions. And I don't know if any of the listeners can correct me if I'm wrong, but I couldn't find the full slate of predictions that we had. I could only find a handful of them. For example, all 3 of us picked the Celtics to win a championship.
Yes.
Are you still standing on that prediction?
I'm going to stand on that prediction.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to win.
Me and you picked Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for MVP. Mr. Armstrong picked Jason Tatum. You're still standing on Shai? And I'm still
Absolutely.
standing on Shea for MVP.
I'm standing on Shea, and I will add, obviously, Jason Tatum to me will be first team All NBA again because he's had a terrific season. And the crazy thing is, Nikola Jokic, his statistical numbers are better than any of the other 3 seasons he won MVP. But
Hmm.
that lets you know just how well Shea Gilgeous-Alexander has played this year, and he has put the Oklahoma City organization on his shoulders and led them to the best record in the entire NBA. So kudos to SGA. I believe he wins his first MVP award.
Yeah, and I see a lot of the discourse amongst fans, like Jokic fans try and tear down Shea's case for MVP, and OKC fans try and tear down Jokic's case for MVP. They're both great players.
No
Every
question.
season in the NBA, there are so many guys that have great seasons and could win. Like I remember when it was between
Hmm.
Harden and Giannis, and I remember
Hmm.
when it's basically between everyone and LeBron, and so on and so forth.
Right.
But there's no discredit to Jokic to say that Shea's the MVP because the
No.
OKC Thunder have got 66 wins already. They're 14 games ahead of the next best team in the Western Conference. And we always talk about how tough the Western Conference is. At some
Right.
point, winning also has to be rewarded. Okay. So
Absolutely.
I'm rolling with Shea, but you mentioned first team All NBA. Do you have an idea of if you had a ballot who you would pick? Because I think there are 4 guys that are locks for first team All NBA, and
Go
that's
ahead.
Jokic, Shea,
Hmm.
Giannis, and Tatum, which then leaves the
Agreed.
fifth spot where I had Donovan Mitchell for most of the season, up until kind
Hmm.
of the little blip that Cleveland had recently.
Hmm.
People make a case for LeBron being in that fifth spot, maybe, but I
Hmm.
remember the first, up until the trade, a lot of people were talking about Anthony Davis being the best player on the Lakers. So
Right. Right.
if Anthony Davis was the best player on the Lakers for the first half of the season, and now Luka Doncic is the best player on the Lakers for the second half of the season, how can you be first team All NBA if your teammates are
Yeah.
the
No.
best player on the team?
Yeah. No. I agree. That's a tough one, but I'll lean towards Donovan Mitchell again because of the type of regular season this Cleveland Cavaliers team has shown. And Donovan, and I've mentioned this before, he's become a better leader on this basketball team. So he's taken a step back when he needs to in an effort to lift up Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, we talked about, has emerged tremendously this year. So I just like how Donovan is playing, leading. He's playing real winning basketball. He comes through in the clutch for this team throughout the year. So I would reward him with his first being a first time all first
Mhm.
team NBA player. So I'm gonna lean towards Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a huge improvement from Donovan Mitchell. But when it comes to the most improved player awards,
Hmm.
who is your pick for that, Scott?
And risk of sounding like a homer, I'm going back to Detroit, and I'm gonna go with Cade Cunningham. And here's why. This Detroit Pistons team was the worst team in the NBA last year. Cade Cunningham comes back this season and improves pretty much in every facet of the game. And in particular, has become a better defender, which I really like. But he's distributing the ball at a very high level. He's cut back on his turnovers. He has taken the Pistons from the worst team to in the playoffs. They're probably going to be sixth seed, maybe fifth seed in the Eastern Conference. So his and the team's rise to me suggests that that's obviously it's the most improved team in the history of the league. And but I believe he's the catalyst for a lot of that on the court. And so I'm going to go Cade Cunningham. He was an all-star this year, and I wouldn't be surprised. To me, he should make one of the 3 all NBA teams as well.
Well, when I went back and listened to those other episodes, we did predict who we think would have a breakout season. And Cade
Hmm.
Cunningham was my selection. Your
Hmm.
selection, and I'm going to quote you, is Evan Mobley. If he can be an
Yes.
all-star, then the Cavs can be a real threat in the East. So
Hmm.
shout out to us, I guess, for picking those guys. For the most improved player award, right? There's loads of directions you can go with this. Cade has been great,
Yes.
but for me, like Cade was the number one pick. Like, come on. we all expected this at some point. Obviously, maybe not on
Well,
this team, but we knew he had this level of
yes.
talent. There are some guys. I think Austin Reeves has been massively improved.
hmm
I
hmm
think Christian Brown in Denver has been massively improved, especially with the void of
Yes.
KCP.
He has played well. I watched him last night too. He really has improved.
I think Evan Mobley has definitely
No
improved. I think
question.
Amon Thompson has had a much improved season. Jalen
hmm
Williams, Trey Murphy as well got injured though. But my pick is Norman Powell because a lot
Wow.
of people wrote
hmm
off the Clippers,
hmm
and for the majority of the season, he's been their leading scorer. And this is
hmm
a team which hasn't had consistency in their lineups, with
hmm
Kawhi Leonard being out, fitting in around James Harden, who is a big focal point of the offense. And obviously, with Paul George walking, he came out and said in the media, we ain't worried. He basically
hmm
said we ain't going to miss him. And I want to give him this award because he stood on business. He should have been an all-star this year. You know, if LeBron didn't
Right.
wait
Yeah.
until the last second to announce that he wasn't playing, Norman Powell would have been an all-star. And that's why I was
Right.
mad at that. Like,
Right. Right.
he deserved the credit for the improvement that he's made this season. And people talked about it at the start of the year, kind of dropped off a little bit. But I think that I would like to give that award to
Good
him.
call. That's a good call. I don't have much argument there, Mo. Again, I just it was a unique circumstance for me. I hear you when you said that Cade had been the number one pick, but he was the number one pick on the worst team in the league, and then they were the worst team in the league last couple of years.
Hmm.
And to make this kind of change and to see the change in his play and the improvement in his game, he's much more efficient. And you know me, I'm big into two-way players. His contributions at the defensive end now, to me, are much more noticeable than in the prior years of his early career. So that's how I landed on Cade,
Yeah, no,
despite where he was
I'm a
drafted.
huge fan of Cade, and
hmm
you're not wrong in what you say. I just don't like the direction this award has gone in. You know, when John
hmm
Morant won it, I was looking at it like, come on, this isn't like a top three pick making a leap 3 years into their career isn't a category for most improved. Like, I think the best most improved winners is like when Laurie Markkinen won it because no one expected him to become an all-star on the Utah Jazz after Cleveland got rid of him.
Well,
Or like, when Julius Randle won it,
I
people
was gonna
didn't
say I was with the guy.
expect
I was with the
Julius. Yeah.
guy. Yeah, I was with the guy who really turned it around. First year, had his struggles there in New York. In year two, really turned it around and to become the most improved player. And that
Yeah.
award meant a lot to him because his efforts translated to us winning more. And that's why probably for me, because that's fresh on my mind, I pivoted to a guy like
Yeah.
Cade because his efforts translated to winning and turning that organization around.
Well, this is why I'm saying Norman Powell because they kept the Clippers in now the top
Yeah.
five in the
Oh,
West in a tough
he's
West,
been
even
awesome.
without Kawhi.
Yeah.
So I would like to change these awards, right? I don't think
hmm
that most improved should even be a award because it's too hard to quantify, right? I think we
hmm
should have comeback player of the year, right? Because Cade missed so much of last season with the injury. This would be
hmm
his award, comeback player of the
hmm
year. And
hmm
then I think proved everyone wrong award. I don't know how you'd phrase it to make it sound better, but like the Julius Randles and Laurie Markkinens and this year the Norman
Right,
Powells of the world,
right,
it's just,
right.
do you know what I mean? That's how I would want to do it.
hmm
With that one. How about the coach of the year?
I'm staying
Yep.
in Detroit.
Yep.
I'm
You're
staying
staying
in
in Detroit.
Motown.
Yep.
Yeah, look, it's an historic turnaround. And that takes, look, Kenny Atkinson, if he wins it because Cleveland had such a terrific year, or even Mark Dagnall, with the best record this year, or Ime Udoka, whose team went from, what were they, 10th last year?
Just
10th
missed
or
out on the
11th,
playoffs.
yeah, they just missed out on the playoffs to now being the number two seed, all are very viable candidates. But to come into a situation that was as bad as what had transpired in Detroit in terms of the winning or lack of winning that was going on the court, what JB Bickerstaff has done, instilling the confidence, the accountability with this group, and he's been really as when I've watched him play this year, he's been really good tactically with this group, putting guys in the right position to succeed. Um, so I like everything that he's done. Again, to go from what did they win? 14 games now, and they are won 43. three times. That doesn't happen. That's an
Hmm.
historic turnaround. So to me, you have to acknowledge that greatness. So I'm going to give the award to JB Bickerstaff just for that monumental turnaround that has occurred in Detroit.
Absolutely. Like you said, JB definitely deserves to be in consideration. Kenny Atkinson coming into a Cleveland team where they didn't really make many roster changes, but he's
Hmm.
got his guys playing much better than last year. Obviously, Mark Dagnall for what the Oklahoma City Thunder have been able to do, but I'm going with Ime Udoka because
Can't argue.
I'm an old school guy, Scott. I'm an old school
Hmm.
guy. And the
Okay.
fact that he's taken Alperen Şengün, built this offense
Hmm.
around him being on the post, and then has walked into the Western Conference after not being in the playoffs last year and has taken his team to the second seed in
Hmm.
a tough Western Conference where everyone says it's the most difficult one. I
Hmm.
feel like that's not getting talked about enough.
Yeah.
I feel like that is not getting recognized. I don't think he'll win it, but for me personally, I just love the old school style of play and I love the teams that are great
Oh,
defensively. That's more of a personal bias award rather than objectively.
Ime is one of the top coaches in the game today, in my opinion, and has done a terrific job down there. He's transformed that Houston Rocket organization to a really tough ball club that's going to defend first. They're going to play physical. They're going to be unafraid of anybody that they're facing. And we've said it here before. They're going to be a difficult out in this Western Conference even though they don't have a lot of playoff experience. I just believe he has them believing in the accountability that he's established there in that locker room is obviously what is necessary if you're trying to have a sustainable winner. So kudos to him. I think this is going to be one of the tightest, in my opinion, one of the tightest votes for Coach of the Year because you made a great case for him, and I think there will be voters that will see a lot of it like you do. The case I'm making for JB Bickerstaff, he's no question there'll be a lot of discussion around him. There's going to be a lot of discussion around Kenny Atkinson for the type of year that the Cavaliers have had. So I think those three guys, in my opinion, probably are at the top
Yeah, I can't
of the
pick.
list.
I can't pick
Hmm.
between them. I think they should all play one on one and see who comes out as the winner. Winner gets the award. How about
Well, if they do that, then your guy Ime gets the nod there.
that? I don't know because he might just get
Because
ejected after the first bucket.
Ime's gonna take him down to the block. They all will be in trouble. So.
Well, speaking of coaching and building these teams, it's only right we ask the executive extraordinaire himself who you have for executive of the year.
Wow, this is always a difficult one, and obviously don't knowing that they all have been my peers and
See,
don't
Scott
want
can't
to
answer this
offend.
question because they're all his friends. He
Yeah,
don't want
yeah,
to
yeah,
pick one.
exactly. I don't want to offend anybody. So I'm going to mention a few names. Obviously, you look at OKC, best record this year, made some very strategic moves in the all season, bringing in Isaiah Hartenstein, Alex Caruso, that helped enhance the depth of that team and made them, the deepest, one of the best defensive teams in the league. So you got to give Sam some consideration there. I think what Mike Dunleavy has been able to do at the trade deadline, going out getting Jimmy Butler, and how that has transformed this Golden State team from a team that was going to be fighting just to get into the play-in now to a legitimate contender to challenge for the Western Conference title. So he's got to get some consideration. But I ended up landing on back east with Kobe Altman at the Cleveland Cavaliers. Made a difficult decision, made a coaching change last year, and went out and got Kenny Atkinson, who's been fantastic there in Cleveland, has unleashed Evan Mobley's game even more. I love the way this team plays basketball, how they really share the game. They've improved defensively as well. And then at the deadline, going to get a DeAndre Hunter that allows them to get a little closer to the Boston Celtics because DeAndre brings them a versatile wing that plays both sides of the floor. So I'm and getting guys like Ty Jerome there in the roster who's had a terrific year as well. I just like some of the moves that have been made there in Cleveland, and we always talk about teams that are at the top and have won a lot. So I settled in on Kobe Altman this year to win that Executive of the Year award.
Yeah, and the coaching change from JB to Kenny Atkinson has actually worked out well for both parties because
Yes, absolutely.
Kenny Atkinson's done a great job in Cleveland and JB's done a great job in Detroit. So shout out to
No
both of those
question.
guys. So,
Hmm.
for me, I didn't really give too much thought to Executive of the Year this year
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
Nico Harrison decided to ruin it by gift wrapping Luka Doncic and sending him to Rob Pelinka and the Lakers. So I don't know if it's a fair reward anymore. However, given our conversations yesterday about the Denver Nuggets, I would like to give it to Brad Stevens because he kept the reigning champions completely intact, which is very tough to do, especially under
Hmm.
the new CBA. So maybe it should be an ownership award that they're willing to spend the luxury tax money. But having no, because we often see, like the 22 Warriors, they lost a bunch of key guys. The Bucks, when
Hmm.
they won it, they lost a bunch of key guys. The Nuggets, when they won it, lost a bunch of key guys. If the only player the Celtics lost was O'Shea Brissett and Svi Mikhailuk, I think we're doing pretty all right. And, they got a chance to run it back. And that's what I love to see. So,
Yeah, yeah,
shout
no,
out to,
no question. A great job. Sometimes, Mo, just holding on to what you have. There's a skill in that, and
Mhm.
there's a deep thought process that goes into that because you figure you got to really ask yourself, are we going to be good enough to win it again if we come back with the same group? And he's made that decision.
Yep.
They're trending in that right direction. And the last thing I'm going to say about this war, these jobs are tough jobs. And they are, maybe aside from the coaching position, the most second guessed
Yep.
positions
Because everyone thinks they can be a
in
GM.
basketball.
Everyone thinks
Absolutely.
anyone with a
Absolutely.
podcast mic can think they can be a GM, right,
Exactly.
Scott?
Exactly. Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's me.
that's you, Mo. Yeah. Yeah. But it's a lot different. I can tell you a real quick story when I was an assistant coach before becoming a head coach. And I used to have older head coaches tell me, okay, you used to giving all these suggestions and this is what you think you'll do and all like that. He said, life changes when you move that 12 inches over to that other seat and you become a head coach.
Hmm.
You go from a suggestion maker to the decision maker. And that is two entirely different worlds. And so, again, much respect to all the GMs out there, whether they were in first place or last place. These jobs are very difficult and hard to come by. And again, wish them all some level of success, and hopefully they can get some sleep every now and then.
Well, we're gonna have to see. And a big part of being a general manager is deciding on which draft pick to select, which brings us nicely to the
Hmm.
rookie of the year. You
Hmm.
see how just smooth these segues are? They're just effortless
Hmm.
at this point.
Hmm.
The Rookie of
Hmm.
the Year award, Scott. Who are you rolling with for the Rookie of the Year? Because BJ and I had a little back and forth about this last week.
There's been rookies like Alex Sarr who scored a lot of points on a bad team. That okay. Uh, Alex Richards say, Atlanta has a chance to make it in the playoffs. They're going to be in the play-in. He's been okay, but I've ended up landing on a guy who they're not going to make the playoffs. But I just like the growth and trajectory of his game, and that's Stephon Castle.
Hmm.
And I think that I think he's been the best. When I watch these guys, I believe he's just the best player right now of these rookies. Now his numbers may not be quite as efficient as some of the others, but just watching him play in the eye test for me on this award, because it was so close, or is so close, nobody truly separated themselves. I landed on Stephon Castle.
That's very valid. I think he will win it. I made the case for Ricochet last week. So if you guys are listening and you want to know why, go
Hmm.
back and listen to that because I won't bore the regular listeners with it. Um, the Rookie of the Year is going to be very interesting next year because let's not get ahead of ourselves, but when there's expectations, it makes the
Yes,
award races more exciting. This
no
year
question.
it was a
That's
wide
right.
open. I think I might have said Reed
Absolutely.
Shepherd might win Rookie of the Year, and he's barely got a game for the Houston Rockets just because of how
Into
their
the year,
season has
there
gone.
was the odds-on favorite based on what they had accomplished before coming into the door. Zion Williamson is going to be the rookie of the year, and look, going back to years with LeBron and
Yeah.
all that. So there was not a player like that to me in this draft, which you said, okay, yeah, he's going to be rookie of the year, and that's probably why it's kind of played out that way this year too. But next year, assuming that it's one young man from Duke, Cooper Flag, there will be a lot riding on him, and we'll see how he performs.
I do have to give an apology here because I completely disregarded the 65 game rule when I was giving some of my picks because Norman Powell has played 58 games. I don't think it's even possible at this stage for him to make it to the 65 game rule.
Okay.
So the reason why I bring that up though is because the award we haven't spoken about yet is the Defensive Player of the Year award, which really was Victor Wembanyama's award. He had it
Yes.
signed, sealed, and almost delivered until he unfortunately had to sit out the rest of the season with an injury. And the
Right.
65 game rule, I understand why some people don't like it, but I think that it's a good rule. I like
Yeah,
it. It
I
means
like it.
guys
Yeah.
have to be available. And if you didn't win, that's just bad luck. Try again next year. But speaking of the Defensive Player of the Year, who have you got? Because there are so many names that are being floated without Wembanyama now. Now it's wide open because I don't think anyone really thought about it until Wembanyama got injured. Now you've got Evan Mobley, Jaren Jackson, Draymond Green, Dyson Daniels, Amon
Daniels, yes.
Thompson. There's so many guys that could be in consideration for this. Who's your pick?
Man, this is probably the closest of all the races because you can make a good case for all those names that you mentioned. If you had asked me a couple months ago, maybe it was Dyson Daniels because of how Atlanta was playing, him guarding multiple positions, the impact that he was making for that ball club on the defensive end. Here as of late, and once Jimmy Butler arrived in Golden State, I think it's shown up even more. I mean, we always know what a great defender that Draymond Green is, and he's won the award before. So if his name is involved and he and wins it, there's no argument here if that happens. You mentioned Zubac, who's really in. Probably that's another name that you could put in the most improved category as well, too, as a player.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because the type of year he's had and the improvement he's made. Jaren Jackson has really been the guy that's carried Memphis this year from a two-way perspective, more so than Ja Morant, just based on his level of consistency and availability. But I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley.
I like that pick.
I'm
I
gonna,
like
I'm gonna
that
go
pick.
with Evan just because again, he's the number one seed in the Eastern Conference. He does a tremendous job of protecting the rim. He guards multiple positions. He has made, along with others, I just want to give him all the credit, but he has really been the catalyst, if you will, for this Cleveland team becoming that much better on the defensive end because he can cover up things at the rim when if guards or somebody on the perimeter get beat, he definitely can alter shots at the rim. But he moves his feet. He's very switchable for a big, so he can guard guards on the perimeter as well too. He's gotten stronger. He's rebounding the ball better. I just like Evan Mobley's presence on the defensive side, and I'm gonna give him the slight nod and award him the Defensive Player of the Year trophy.
You know what? I really like Ivica Zubac and what he's done this season, especially when you look at that Clippers team. You wouldn't expect them to necessarily be so good defensively. They got a third ranked defense in the NBA, and a lot of that has just been his rim protection. But I actually think I'm going to give this to Lou Dort of the OKC Thunder
Wow, good
because
name. Good
yeah,
name.
because the Thunder, after I listed off all the names that I'm considering, I was like, how have I got no one representing the Thunder? Because they
Yes.
have the lowest defensive rating. They're the best defense in the NBA, and I like Lou Dort because he takes on the assignment of the other team's best player. And OKC have got so many guys that can guard and the switchability, and so they've got to have someone in the mix.
Yes.
Maybe it's not so much of an individual responsibility like we've seen in previous years with Draymond Green or Rudy Gobert, where they solely anchor the defense. Lou Dort has the luxury of having great defensive teammates around him, but I feel like their defense being historically good and their record being historically good does lead me to the fact that yeah, okay, they can have the MVP and the defensive player and all of this because you know they can get rewarded. These are regular season awards, and they've had a
Yes.
historic regular season. Now,
they
I'm not
have.
saying when the playoffs begin that Shea's going to be the best player in the playoffs. I'm not saying Lou Dort's the best defender in the playoffs. I'm just saying for the regular season and what they've
Oh no,
accomplished in its totality, that's who I would go with.
good pick because they go small a lot. Especially when Chet Holmgren was out and Lou Dort was guarding four, power forwards, maybe
Yeah.
even some center,
Yeah.
secondary centers.
Yeah,
And we
and
know
Jalen
he,
Williams.
we
I
know,
want to give Jalen Williams some credit because he could have
yes,
even been in
no,
conversations for most improved.
yeah, no, no,
And
good.
defensively, he did a great job when Hartenstein and Chet were both out. They ran him at the five a lot, and he did a great job defensively too.
Lou Dort is one of those winning type players that doesn't get a lot of public accolades. But if you're a coach or you're a front office executive, you love having him on your team.
I think the Defensive Player of the Year award should be separated, one for bigs and one for non-bigs,
Yes.
because it's two very different things. The way Rudy Gobert plays and the way Dyson Daniels play,
Yep, no
complete
question.
opposites, right? Dyson Daniel can pick up a guy 84 feet. Rudy Gobert is parked up protecting the bucket. So I would like to see some separation from that. You know what I mean? I have a little review of some of the other things. We've covered all the awards, right? I'm not losing track here.
Yes.
We've covered all the
Yes.
awards.
Yes. Yeah, we got them all.
I do want to have a little look back at the standings we predicted, or like we ranked the
Oh.
top 8 teams in each conference.
That's been a while, so I want to hear this myself.
And,
'Cause I
and
do not
obviously,
know.
like things happened during the season, like the Luka trade happened, Jimmy Butler trade happened, so that's affected how things have worked
Yep.
out. But bear in mind, these were done in October 2024. Your top
October.
8 for
Okay.
the East, starting at
Okay.
1, so the most likely to win the Eastern Conference. You had the Celtics at 1, then the Knicks, then the
Okay.
Bucks, and then the Sixers, and then the Magic, the Pacers, the Cavs, and the Heat.
Okay.
And I don't think that, aside from the Sixers, because I tried to tell you were crazy, I don't think the rest of it is a mad order. But I
Right.
just want to highlight the great season the Cavs have had.
Oh, no question.
Fantastic, surpassed every expectation. BJ had the Celtics, the Knicks, the Pacers, the Bucks, the Cavs, the Magic, the Sixers, and the Heat. And I had the Celtics, the Knicks, the Bucks, the Cavs, Magic, Pacers, Heat, and then I gave a sarcastic sympathy 8 spot to the Sixers. But
Okay. But you had them in the 8, Mo. You had them in
well,
the
that's
8.
because I was
Okay.
listening to the episode and you guys were getting on to
Exactly.
me for being a hater, so I had to put him. I had to put him somewhere.
But when you listen, when I listen to that list, obviously the one huge omission, the Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, but
No one saw
expected
that come. No
because
one saw that come.
when I said that Cade would have a breakout season, you guys were telling me, yeah, but it's got to be on a winning team, and now here we are.
Exactly.
So I can see
Exactly.
why you pick him
Yeah.
for most improved. For the West, though, all 3 of us had OKC at 1.
Okay.
Then you had the Wolves, the Mavs, which obviously doesn't count now because Luka's not there. Then you had
Right.
the Suns, the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, the Warriors, and you had the Rockets at 8.
Okay.
BJ had OKC, Minnesota, Dallas, Phoenix, Memphis, Denver, Golden State, and then he had San Antonio at 8. He guaranteed us that Wembanyama would be in the playoffs this year. But sadly, the
that was
injuries have
tough.
occurred.
So, woo.
And then I had OKC, Dallas, Minnesota, Memphis, Denver, Phoenix, the Lakers, and the Rockets.
Well, again, you know what this speaks to me? Just the parity in this league right now. Because obviously, a lot of our projections back in October were based on what we saw with the closing part of the 2024 season,
Yeah.
playoffs, and so on and so forth. And so you're projecting off of that. And then we know some of the moves that were made in the offseason. And we talked about that with OKC. That's obviously why I put them number 1 again, because they added to the group that they had that finished 1 last year when they went and got Hartenstein and Caruso.
I think what it shows for me, though, is the importance of in-season moves that could slightly
Yes.
move the needle for your team. Because I think now in a parity era more than ever, because if we go back 10 years, Scott, and it's 2015, 2016, we can pencil in the Warriors and the Cavs to the finals again. Like
Yes.
10 years ago, you're not worried, right? Whereas now, everyone thinks they have a chance of winning. Everyone thinks they have a chance of making the playoffs, right? So it's impossible to predict, but also being an executive who can find something during the course of a season that can move the needle for your team, I think is is more important than ever now. You know, especially because we all picked the Mavs in the top three. They're so far gone
Right.
now.
And where did we have the Lakers
You did not have the Lakers.
in the 8?
BJ did not have the Lakers. I had the Lakers at 7.
You had them at 7. Okay.
But realistically, the conversation that we had about it was Anthony Davis just played the most games he's ever played in the season.
Yes,
We
right.
don't trust that he can do that again. But I put them in because those slimy LA Lakers always find a way to get the best players available, even though they don't deserve them, like they did with Shaq and Kobe and all of these guys. And now they've ended up with Luka Doncic. So I had to put them in there for the business of basketball reasons rather than real basketball. And it worked out for them. And now they're looking like they could, you know, cause some damage.
Obviously, as I hit a list, obviously the biggest disappointment on the Western side, Phoenix Suns, clearly. And on the Eastern side, your Philadelphia 76ers.
God, man, I rebuke that. I rebuke that. Oh, man. Man said, yours, never.
36,
never.
exactly. Mo, you like how I passed that off to you? You like how I passed it off to you? I ran from that.
See what I mean? Most improved podcast of the year with Scott Perry. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. The Suns, do you know what's crazy? Do you know what's crazy, right?
All right.
Every team in the NBA is either in the playoffs, the play-in, or the draft lottery. The Phoenix Suns are in nothing. They're just existing in nothingness because they're going to have to trade KD this summer, or all indications say that they're going to trade KD this summer. But then even then, if you move on KD, I don't think you're building around Bradley Beal or Devin Booker a contending team. And that's a whole nother discussion.
The Sixers, that is a whole nother. There's a lot, just to put it mildly, there's a lot of work and change that has to happen in Phoenix. And I'm sure that they know that better than anybody.
Well, I think that the change needs to happen in Philadelphia. More important, more pressing than in Phoenix. Because how many more years of prime Joel Embiid do you have left? KD, as great as he is, we've seen his prime. He won his championships. Credit to him, right? Embiid has never even got to the conference finals, let alone an NBA finals, let alone won the whole thing. He's got, with his health issues, I don't know how many more years playing at the level he can play. So we look
can he be prime Joel
exactly
anymore? That's the big question.
For like 40 games a year, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Can he be that? Just because of the health, and it's really unfortunate for him and the franchise. So
and then you added Paul George, who's not been healthy either, but even when healthy, did not look like the max contract player that you gave him that contract. But why I'm saying it's more pressing in Philadelphia is I do think even with the disaster this season has begun, you've got Tyrese Maxey and you've got Jared McCain, who are two dynamic young players that you could actually pivot and build a team around them that could go on to become very good. So that's why it's interesting to me more so than Phoenix, because Phoenix don't really have many moves they can make.
That's the kind of discussion obviously you would have as a front office executive if you're sitting there in Philadelphia right now. The tough part is going to be who's going to take Joel Embiid in his contract around the league. Who's going to take Paul George for that matter? We said this when they made the Paul George deal. Paul George had missed more games the previous 4 years before signing in Philly than Joel Embiid.
But Scott, I'll tell you one thing.
And so now those are your best two players that you built around. Obviously, Tyrese Maxey is excellent, and to me, you would argue when I say that I may recant it some because Tyrese Maxey is the best player now because he's available.
Yeah, we know 100%. I agree.
Yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see if they decide to pivot like you're just mentioning there. What's the market for either of those guys?
This is the thing, though, Scott. Is a wise man once told me, Mo, there is no such thing as an untradeable contract.
Oh no, look. I came into the NBA, learned that right away, and it existed well before I got. I started in the NBA back in 2000, and that was kind of a tried and true statement. You look at it, oh man, this contract is so egregious, and we'll never be able to trade it. But there was always a taker. But I don't know. Nowadays, and with the new CBA, things change. You've got to be willing. who's going to be willing to take on Joel Embiid has what 3-4 years left on his contract, max deal, and you're taking on a player that you hope could play 60 games a year.
I think, and this is just a guess,
Mm-hmm.
but I think if anyone can see that challenge as you pose it, that Mr. Riley might be sitting there in South Beach thinking, I can fix this. Get him in the condition that he needs to be in, get him through the season, and get him to where he needs to go. Because a healthy Embiid and Bam in the front court would be scary.
No, it would be scary. What you got to worry yourself about, as great as the Heat culture is in terms of getting guys in shape, Joel Embiid is not as a younger player now. He's on the other side of 30. So in getting him into that kind of condition, what toll is that going to take on his body? Hopefully it will improve him and it will buy him some more time. That's would be the thought process.
Yeah,
well, he's gonna have something they're going to have to figure that. That's something they're going to have to figure out.
He's going to have a whole off season because you don't have the Olympics like last year. So it gives him more time. And I don't know how much.
And look, I am a Joel Embiid fan. I'm pulling for him and praying for him that somehow he can get his body to a place where he can give himself first, number one, and the organization and the fan base, number two, some more years of the excellent play from the center position that we see when he's healthy. So we'll see.
We will indeed. We've got one more episode tomorrow. Okay. And we might answer some of the questions from the listeners. It'll be their last chance to get their questions answered before the playoffs are here. Okay. So you guys get in the Discord, send over your questions. And Scott and I will be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. Scotty P, appreciate you. We'll see how these awards filter out as the season ends. Okay. The one thing I do miss, speaking about these awards, is for a couple of years there, they had like an NBA awards ceremony with like a red carpet. They made a TV show out of it.
Yes, right.
But I miss when they would give the awards on the court in the playoffs.
I think that is a nice touch. I've always liked that. That's what I grew up with. And then when I first started in the league, that's what it was. And because you appreciate it in the moment by the players on the court, your organization and your fan base at home. And I think that's a tremendous thing. So it's very intimate.
The other thing is it ensures that all the award winners at least are in the first round of the playoffs. You don't end up giving an award to someone who didn't even make the playoffs. So
that good point, Mo. Good point. But however they turn out, I know one thing. Mo is going to be keeping score on who got them right and who got them wrong.
Well, I'm already looking forward to next year's predictions for next season. But there's a while to go till then. We've got the play-in first coming up next week, and then we've got the NBA playoffs coming after that. So make sure you subscribe to the show, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from, to stay locked in with the best podcast in the business. Until tomorrow, get buckets.